Navigating into the big waters, the rise of Adolf Hitler. Before I continue, I emphasize to you one Kasoma Farouk of Uganda idea. No one is coming. No one is what? Your government is busy, your family is busy, even your friends are busy. It's upon you to liberate your what? Yourself. So we are looking at the key reasons that led to the rise of Adolf Hitler. In other words, we are saying today, Adolf Hitler was born in 1889 at Braunau, a border town between Germany and Austria. He was born to Alois Hitler, who was serving in Austria as a custodian officer in 1902. So we are saying Adolf Hitler at one time participated in World War I. But what were the key reasons that influenced the rise of Adolf Hitler? Number one, the outbreak of World War I, 1914 to 18. So we are saying the outbreak of World War I, where Hitler participated, and he was a runner who carried messages to and from the battlefront. And he was at the rank of corporal due to his distinguished service and bravery during the war. He was awarded a Medal of Honor. So we are saying in World War I, Adolf Hitler was awarded a Medal of what? Honor for his participation and great work in World War I. So it is this that increased his popularity. By the time he wanted leadership, people knew him. Because in World War I, he was awarded a great medal and he became what? Popular. So by the time he rose up and he was campaigning for leadership, people knew him. So we are saying the outbreak of World War I increased Hitler's popularity, and this led to his rise to what? To power. Then the unrealistic terms of the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919. What happened at Versailles? It is said at Versailles, the Germans were humiliated. You remember the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919 blamed the German for causing World War I. It disarmed only German. So Hitler capitalized on the weak points of the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919 to campaign for him what? Himself. He promised the Germans that if you choose me today, I'm going to turn against the Versailles Peace what? Peace Treaty. So the unrealistic terms of the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919 led to the rise of Adolf Hitler, because he used the weak points of Versailles to campaign for him what? Himself. Then the weakness of the Weimar Republic. So we are saying the Weimar Republic, which was formed after World War I, after the collapse of Kaiser William II, was very weak. It failed to solve the economic problems of the time. There were high levels of unemployment and poverty. So it is this that influenced the rise of Adolf Hitler. So we are saying the weakness of the Weimar Republic influenced the rise of Adolf Hitler. So it was a question of the weakness of the Weimar Republic that influenced the rise of Adolf Hitler. In other words, so we are saying the weakness of the Weimar Republic led to the rise of Adolf Hitler. In other words, he promised the people to solve the problems. Another one, the character and the personality of Adolf Hitler. Another key reason that led to the rise of Hitler was his character. He had an outstanding character, which enabled him to win the support of the Germans. Through his oratory power, Hitler mobilized the Germans, and this enabled him to rise to what? To power. Where we are saying Hitler capitalized on his personality to convince people to rise to what? To power. In other words, he was a magnetic speaker. His speeches could attract people and this enabled Hitler to campaign for himself because he was a great mobilizer in politics, and this made him popular, which led to his rise to what? To power. Then Adolf Hitler's publications and writings. So we are saying today, Adolf Hitler's publications and writings led to his rise to what? To power. By this time we are like saying, one time Hitler was in prison, but when he was in prison, he wrote a great book called Mein Kampf, My Struggle, where he wrote ideas concerning about what he was going to do for the German people. So his publications made him to become what? Popular. By the time he rose up and he was campaigning for leadership, people knew him, and this led to his rise to what? To power. Then the growing threat of communism in Germany. So we are saying today, the growing threat of communism, this was an ideology where it was agitating all of properties to belong to the government, and the government had to look after what? People. Now, because the communism, let me first explain this. Because the communism was spreading at a very high what? Communism was spreading at a very high what? Speed. So, the capitalists believed in private ownership of property. Because by this time the capitalists were many in Germany, the capitalists were against communism because they feared to lose their what? Their property. Since in a communist state, all of properties are owned by the what? By the government. So the capitalists had to support Hitler, and this led to his rise to what? To power. So the growing threat of communism, the capitalists feared communism to come up in Germany, and they supported Adolf Hitler because they feared to lose their what? Their property. And this influenced the rise of Hitler. The role played by the Nazi party and propaganda. We are saying today, the Nazi party and the propaganda led to the rise of Adolf Hitler. The Nazi carried out propaganda that if you don't support Nazi, if you don't support Adolf Hitler, we are going to kill you. So the role played by the Nazi propaganda led to the rise of Adolf Hitler. Because by this time, the people had to support Nazism, as they feared by this time to be killed by the what? By the Nazi. So they ended up supporting Adolf Hitler because they feared to be killed by Hitler and his men. And this led to his rise to what? To power. Then the economic depression. Let me first explain. The economic depression. The economic what? The economic depression, which started in 1929, led to the rise of Hitler. Because Germany had so many problems, I can say high levels of unemployment, high levels of poverty. This came as a result of the economic what? Depression. So Hitler convinced the people that if they choose him, he was going to solve the problems caused by the economic what? Depression. So the economic depression was used by Hitler to campaign for himself. That's why he had to get political what? Power. Then Adolf Hitler had the support of the army. So we are saying today, because Hitler had the support of the army, this made other people also to support him. After realizing that the army was supporting Hitler, by this time, even other peasants, other people had to support Adolf Hitler. After realizing that a great institution, the army was supporting Adolf Hitler, hence leading to his rise to what? To power. The role played by the Nazi stormtroopers. What were the Nazi stormtroopers? These were Hitler's youth they were trained to kill anyone who was not supporting Nazism. So the Nazi stormtroopers led to the rise of Adolf Hitler, where I can say they threatened the people that if you don't support our candidate, Hitler, we are going to kill you. And this made Hitler to be supported by people for the fear. Then the traditions of the Germans towards dictatorial leadership. The Germans were used to dictators. At one time they had a man called Otto von Bismarck. He was a dictator at one time. So they were used to dictators. They were not used to liberal government like that of Weimar Republic. So they saw in Hitler an element of dictatorship. That's why they had to do what? To support him. So the traditions of the Germans of believing in dictatorship led to the rise of Adolf Hitler. They had to support him. Then the burning of the Riksdag building in Berlin. This was a parliamentary building. So what happened? The burning of the Riksdag building in Berlin led to the rise of Adolf Hitler. How? In the way that the Nazis are the one that put fire on the parliamentary building in Berlin at Riksdag. But they carried out propaganda and say that the communists are the one that put fire on the parliamentary what? Building. This made the people to hate the communists. But in reality, the Nazis are the one that put fire on the Riksdag what? Building. So by this time, people started hating the communists and they supported the what? The Nazi. Hence influencing the rise of Adolf Hitler. Then the rise of fascism in Italy. It is said in the year 1922, the fascists took political power in where? In Italy. When the fascists took political power in Italy, this led to the rise of Hitler in Germany. Hitler was influenced by the fascists. Hitler and his men, the Nazis, were saying as the fascists have taken over power in Italy, even as we are going to take over what? Power. And this led to their rise to power because they were inspired. And that's the rise of Adolf Hitler. Then the death of President Hindenburg in 1934. So we are saying when Hindenburg died in 1934, he left a power vacuum. Mind you, Hitler had been made the chancellor. When Hindenburg died, Hitler announced himself the chancellor, the president, and the command of the armed forces. And by this time, he was chosen. So the death of President Hindenburg influenced the rise of Adolf Hitler. When Hindenburg died, it is this that led